welcome back to a lovely morning coffee episode of the Throwing Bones MMA podcast. Whoops, and I'm knocking all of my stuff all around the table already. I'm your host, Adam Gerber. And there was some Wednesday night fights this week that we didn't get to do a breakdown for. So what we're going to do, I'd like to apologize about that. I did mean to do it, but my apartment had a major sewage break over the last couple days, and so surviving in here during the pandemic with no running water has been all of the activity I've been able to handle. But anyway, we've got fights today. Water just got fixed last night, by the way. Happy days. Had a beautiful shower this morning. Haven't felt cleaner in my whole life. So we got two fights to break down. We're gonna break down UFC 249, and try not to get too sad about that. And we're also going to break down the Teixeira versus Smith card. And then we're going to do a little preview of tonight's little ditty. So hopefully I won't comment too much on the coronavirus, because Lord knows that you're going to see a million ads and commercials about it today. It's like, oh, what's this? A global pandemic's happened. How can we take advantage of this and profit goodwill? Sickening. I wonder what's going to be more annoying tonight. Actually, let's put our bets out there. What's going to be more morally nauseating? All of the ads taking advantage of the coronavirus situation to thank first responders and get goodwill from the public, or the UFC continually using the storyline of Walt Harris is fighting for his recently murdered daughter. Remember when people were saying that it was distasteful to include the Khabib Conor bus incident of Conor throwing the dolly through the window? Well, they're literally using his dead daughter as motivation and as promotion for the fight. Jesus Christ. Okay, anyway. Let's get into it with the first card. We're going to talk about UFC 249. Well, I hope you guys are happy. We couldn't wait, could we? We couldn't wait. And now, I mean, I hate to be the harbinger of bad news here, but I kind of called this, hey? I think this was a much more dangerous fight for Ferguson than anyone was really given credit. I think it was sort of taken for granted by most of the fan base that Tony was just going to run through Gaethje. I think a lot of people were more excited for this fight because of how there hadn't been fights for a while, which is understandable. But at the end of the day, the more we look at this card, I think, the more we're really lucky that there was some amazing barn-burning fights, because if the fights weren't as amazing as they were, I think a lot of us would be a lot more sad coming out of this card. And I'm going to break down why. Okay. First off, you have the most significant fight in MMA history that's been set up for 7 years. Fell through. Tony lost. And now one of the most significant encounters in MMA history has lost a very good portion of its muster. And why? Let's take a look at why. We can't hold up the division, or I'm not even sure really what the reasoning was, because when you look at it, they're looking to make Gaethje versus Khabib now for summer on Fight Island. So we saved 2 months, guys. We saved 2 whole months. Was it worth it? I don't think so. This has just left me feeling absolutely broken. We took someone in Tony Ferguson who should have... Let's be real, guys, and this is why it's so sad, and this is why I hated this fight going into it. Tony's 36, okay? In a division like lightweight, like 155, that's the drop-off point. If Tony was going to get beat like this should have been his title defense. This should have been his reckoning moment. This should have been his beginning of the decline. Instead, this is him getting stopped before he can make it to the finish line again. Again. How many times should Tony Ferguson have fought for a belt already? And we don't know how great he would be. The worst part is you can't even... you can't even without a doubt say that would have been the outcome a couple years ago. That was such a close fight, and he was able to eat so much of that damage. And I think that's why it upsets me, is because we really don't know now. Because Tony got jerked around for so long, we really don't know. This guy could have been someone who was fighting top contenders at a high level for the past 5 to 6 years. And of course he was. And pretty much McGregor, this is pretty much what happened, is between a whole hell of a lot of injuries, 4 fights falling through in an unprecedented manner, but then Conor taking up and stalling the whole division. Tony Ferguson lost the prime years of his career, when he could have been putting on, and I know this is like a bit of a bit of a hyperbole to compare him to Muhammad Ali, but we had a trifecta going here. All right, but what happened was, whether you want Ferguson to be the Muhammad Ali or the Joe Frazier or the Sonny Liston, one of these guys never even got to make it into the trifecta. This should have been Ferguson losing his belt and exiting from the game. This type of beating, this type of performance. But instead, this is stopping him before he can get there. Again. That's it, man. Like, could he work his way up to a Khabib fight? Would they probably still do it? Yeah. Is it going to have the muster? No. Is it going to have the significance to Tony's career and legacy? No. You know, well, Khabib's got to beat Justin, and then he's going to beat Gaethje, and then that's, you know, or he can beat Gaethje, but if he does, that'll cement his legacy. But man, Tony just got so screwed, and I know that he wanted to fight, but it's like, we just couldn't wait. We absolutely ruined it, and it's because we couldn't wait 2 more months after waiting 8 years. This makes me so sad. So often, people want to build these types of fights up. And it's why people watch professional wrestling. And it's why boxing has ruined itself. Is over the magic of these types of fights. And so instead of creating a mosh pit of competition and letting the cream rise to the top, and do my best Macho Man Randy Savage impression. Oh yeah, unjustifiably in a position I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top. All right? The cream rose in a way that it rarely does. In a way that is so rare and so magical that companies and an entire boxing industry has literally shot themselves in the foot and tied an anvil to their ankle trying to make these things happen over and over and over again. It's literally the reason that boxing is so Puritan about their records. This feeling that I have that they've ruined this fight now with a loss, but it's not for the same reason. So what they do is they build up pretty much cans, people that are very beatable for their star, and they build and they build and they build until they have this huge whatever and 0 record, and then they can challenge, and it's this huge fight like the Wilder Fury fight. But the thing is, it takes years and years and years and years and years to do. They might not ever fight each other, and then you get one fight out of it, and then because it takes all of that building and all of that bullshit that people didn't want to see to get you to that place, right? More often than not, they're going to end it in a draw so that they can at least squeeze a little bit more money out of that payday. And they've completely handcuffed their entire industry to try and replicate and recreate this situation over and over and over and over again, to the point where people don't watch most of the fights because they know they're just bullshit. And then so when they get to that point where it's these huge undefeated records, people don't care about them because they know they're completely padded with tomato cans. So the fact that Ferguson and Khabib worked their way up this absolute murderer's row of a division, met at the top, and were about to fight and have this well-deserved, well-earned, monumental occasion. But then the pandemic happens and we can't stand not having fights for two months! 2 whole months we couldn't go without it. I mean, the fight itself. I guess we talk about the fight itself now. This was very much. This was like watching Max Holloway fight Alexander Volkanovski for me. It seemed like Tony was just convinced that he was better, and I think probably the worst thing that could have happened to him was landing that uppercut so late in the third, because he wasn't able to follow up and finish. But he was also, now that told him, I've got the power to rock this guy and put him away, so that's what I'm gonna do. Not a smart fight from Tony. I don't think tried for a takedown attempt one time until the 4th or the 5th round, and even then he was throwing half-assed Imanari rolls. And that's how you know you're in trouble. He went, I believe it was the 3rd round. I'm sorry I didn't have the fight taped, you guys, so I wasn't able to go back and watch it again. But I think in the 3rd round, Eddie Bravo's in his corner, and he obviously, like, it's not going right anymore. And Eddie Bravo goes, try throwing an Imanari roll. And A, he didn't until like 2 rounds later. And B, if you're at the point where the advice is throw an Imanari roll, look at any fight in history. When the advice comes down to throw an Imanari roll, you're done. You're done. Whether it's McDonald versus Thompson, or I can't think of another one, but you are absolutely exhausted of ideas if your thing is go for an Imanari roll. How about shoot a takedown? Like one takedown. Like didn't even go for an ankle pick. I don't know. Tony seemed to really be in his own head that night. He wouldn't listen to his coaches. Not that he was getting great cornering advice in the first place. I don't think he had all of his coaches there. He just had Eddie Bravo. Horrible night for Ferguson. But, onto the positive. Justin Gaethje. I told you guys. I told you. And I've been telling you. And I've been telling people online. They keep acting like, well, what's Gaethje going to do? He lost to Alvarez and he lost to Poirier. So what worth does he really have? And the way I see it, and the way I've always saw it, is like, what were you watching? Like, sure, like, are you just looking at the records on Wikipedia, or were you paying attention at the time? Because it was pretty obvious when Gaethje got to the UFC, he was there for a laugh, and he was there to have fun, okay? And so he ran face first at every competition that he had, and it worked a good amount of the time, and it almost worked against super high level Alvarez and Poirier. You want to talk about the Alvarez and Poirier fight like it disparages Gaethje's record or his ability or his future claims at title contention. He was running at those high caliber, like some of the highest caliber fighters in the world. He was just running at them face first. Okay? This was not a man with strategy. He was going in there to deal a bunch of damage. And one of my favorite quotes from Gaethje when he got to the UFC is someone said, to someone who's never seen you fight before, describe your fight style. And he said, I win car crashes. And that's exactly, I was talking to my friend the other day and he goes, how about that Tony Ferguson fight? I go, I don't need to see it again. We were rewatching some of them. I said, I don't need to see the Ferguson one again. I remember it perfectly, like trauma. Like I saw a car crash. Boom. He was so right. Like it's a car crash. And so when you just are going to smash yourself into the wall over again, head first, and that almost works based on your pure athletic ability, your pocket fighting, like he would go and put himself in the pocket all the time and just land crazy amounts of damage. He's not doing that at all now. He's minimizing damage. He's minimizing engagement. and he's using his power the way he should. He's picking his shots, and when he lands huge, and he's dismantling dudes. Absolutely dismantling dudes. Almost without being touched. He looked great coming out of the Ferguson fight. Like, I'm blown away by Gaethje, and for anyone to look at what Gaethje's been doing over the past couple fights and say, like, oh, well, he just knocked out a bunch of lower level guys and he lost to these dudes, you're ignoring the fact that he has completely rebuilt his game plan and his style of fighting from the ground up. From the ground up to be really part and parcel with the most professional fighters in the world. He's not going out there and being by the way, getting to number 5 in the world by just throwing yourself at people? That's ridiculous. So you take that athletic ability, you take that granite chin, you take the durability, you take the willingness to engage, and you take years and years of experience of pocket fighting, and what you do is you tailor a game plan more to a regular pick your shots, draw the counter style fight. Then if the fight gets hairy, you have all of that pocket experience to dominate, you have all of this durability, and you have some of the most insane power in the entire UFC. I'm pretty sure from a weight to power punching ratio, like how hard they hit versus how much they weigh, when they tested it, I'm pretty sure Gaethje hits harder than Ngannou. So the fact that now he's actually building a game plan around it to unleash that power in a regulated, tactful manner, he's going to be fucking unstoppable. And that's what I've been thinking. Like, when they made this fight, I'm like, it's over. Like, the leg kicks alone, man. Like, what? When, like, Gaethje was an absolute force to be reckoned with before he was thinking in there. Now that he's got a Trevor Whitman game plan and coach behind him, and he always had that, but Trevor Whitman was just going to let him be him. But now it's like Gaethje's woken up, and Trevor Whitman's had this planned all along for when it finally happened. And the way they've been in the time frame that they've been able to completely change his habits and his style while keeping all of the things that made him one of the most dangerous fighters ever. Dude, like, that is someone who might be able to beat Khabib for real. For real. If he can keep, like, it's not even a matter of, like, if he can keep Khabib off him. Justin just has so much damage from everywhere. This is going to be a great fight too. And I think, you know, you don't want your disappointment in the loss of the Ferguson-Khabib fight to overshadow the fact that this is a great matchup. It's going to be a great matchup. Doesn't have the historic build-up, you know? Just doesn't. But damn, like, that's going to be a great stylistic fight, and it's all going to come down to how Gaethje can blend his takedown defense and still do consistent damage. It's going to be a gas tank battle, and the way he paced himself over those 5 rounds was very interesting. All right, that's all I have to say about that one. I'm glad we got all the depressing stuff out of the way, and then we can praise Gaethje for, because that's the thing, man. Is these are two of the favorite fighters of most people watching, and God, man, you just can't cheer for one. You're gonna be sad whoever loses. One of those, you're gonna be sad whoever loses. But the fact, I would have been less sad if Gaethje lost. It meant less, really. But man, these are two bad mamma jammas. Damn, it was a great fight. I just wish the circumstances around it didn't make it so depressing, because it was just greedy. That's all it was. It was we gotta get our nut. We gotta get our nut. And we can't wait 2 months. The end. So that's disappointing. Continuing the bizarre night, Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. Another fight that I just absolutely called. Cejudo just had more of a game plan. Came in kicking in the legs immediately. Love it. Called it. I knew it. He's way too good at game planning to not have picked up on the fact that people should have been leg kicking Dominic Cruz since 15 years ago. So good for him. Gradually moved to the body. Was tagging him up. You saw that it's such a perfect game plan for Cruz because he relies so much on that movement. Anytime Dominic would stop moving for a second, slam with the leg kick. Slam with the leg kick. It was beautiful. Beautiful. And then the best part is that then he can't stop moving. Then he can't stop moving because Dominick Cruz's style is all about erratic movement before stopping on a dime, pivoting, and landing a shot. But he couldn't stop and pivot or do any of that. He tried wrestling and Cejudo shucked him off, which is a huge thing. It's Dominick Cruz, he's dipping, he's diving, he's jerking, he's back and forth. And then once you start getting onto that and start reading that, he'll mix in a takedown. He mixes things so well. And Henry did such a great job of neutralizing so much of his defense, right? The way that Dominic would use offense as defense. Right away, you can't mix in the takedowns. He stopped that right away. That takes away almost half of Dominic's defense. Mixing in those takedowns and keeping the opponent guessing and ducking under shots when they start really swinging and feeling like they can actually reach him once he's out of position with the footwork. Huge part of his game. Taken away immediately. Next is the erratic movement in the footwork. When you're kicking the leg like that, not only is Stank coming off of Dominick Cruz's shots, but all of a sudden he's not going to be able to move as rapidly and as well. And the best part is Cruz knows that. And he knows that you're only really reliably landing leg kicks when he stands still, so he moves more. But it's not purposeful movement. It's not movement that's cutting angles on you. It's not movement that's, it's not movements that's creating openings with you. It's movement for the sake of movement. It's movement not to get hit. And that was so evident. And by the even into the second round, you could see that Dominic was fading. And he might not have been fading cardio-wise. Maybe still had his breath. Heart rate's still going good. But his legs were done. He wasn't moving like that easily anymore. And I think it was a mixture of the leg kicks, and it was a mixture of all of a sudden the movement's more constant. There's no breaks. There's no pivots. And that's going to tire you out more. You know, you get into a rhythm. He couldn't get into a rhythm because Cejudo was reading the rhythm. And then he predicted that. Oh my God, he predicted that takedown so well. He ducked right into the knee, caught him so clean, and then that follow-up shot across the face. Oh my God, that was disgusting. In a beautiful way. And I can't believe, I guess we're going to have to talk about this. Here's another thing that's this one was depressing too. It was a great fight, but the ending was so weird. Okay, let's get into why. Oh my God. This was such a weird fight. Card. Okay, so it happens, all right? The stoppage happens, which was, I'm going to go out and say that was a great stoppage, okay? Especially after what we saw between Teixeira and Smith on Wednesday. Cruz versus Cejudo, that was a great stoppage. Dominic's got no right to complain, and the fact that he did really surprised me. So unlike him, especially when you see his fight against Cody Garbrandt, and he loses that unanimous decision, and he goes and he is just the absolute picture of professionalism and sportsmanship and, championship mentality, and he's not making any excuses, and he's not blaming anyone but himself, and he just wants to get back to the drawing board. What an opposite reaction this time. First thing is he's arguing with the ref, and it's an early stoppage, but now he's come out to the media, and he's maintaining that Keith Peterson smelled like alcohol and cigarettes. He's accusing him of being drunk on the job, And you can tell it's just because he's sort of got his feelings hurt. And this is part of why I've had a problem with Dominic, is he's just arrogant. He's just arrogant, and this is really coming through, and it's coming through in a way where, and it makes sense, actually. It does make sense. And friend and co-host of the show, Kyle Wheeler, he explained this to me in actually a fantastic way, because I was flabbergasted over the difference in the way that Dominick Cruz handled the Cejudo loss and the Garbrandt loss. And I said, well, maybe part of the reason is that Cruz realizes that Cruz realizes that was his last title shot. Like, realistically, that was the last shot that he was going to get. I think that's part of it. I think probably a little bit more sour grapes, realizing that was your last shot and you just got starched in a way that you never have. part of it, I think, and this is what Kyle said, and I think he nailed this. Part of it is that it's much easier to argue an early stoppage like that, where you're against the fence, than it is to go out there and be a poor sport about the fact that some dude knocked you down 7 times, and then instead of following up, he'd just point at you and laugh at you and break dance. There's not really many excuses you can come up with for that. So he kind of just had to eat that humble pie, didn't he? I thought that was a great point by Kyle. Maybe he isn't this paragon of virtue and humbleness that we thought. Maybe it was just that he was literally backed into a corner by how much he was dominated the first time. And geez, guys, like I think this one was worse. Like Cody Garbrandt did the dance with him and outdanced him, which was so impressive. Cejudo dismantled Dominic the fighter. He absolutely it was an absolute dismantling. And if it wasn't finished there in the second, it was going to be finished later. That's a fact. There's no way. There's no way if Cruz was making it through that fight the way it was going. Oh, what else was so weird about this was I expected Cruz to retire after this fight. And maybe he was going to, but Cejudo steals all the shine, knocks him out, takes the first interview, he retires. Makes me sad because great performances from Cejudo all the time. Made me realize how much I am really a fan of him despite all the goofy stuff outside the octagon. Makes me so sad that he's retiring this early. I think he should be considered one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. The way he did these performances, honestly. Looking back, I got in an argument with someone online this week. But looking back at their records, I honestly think what Cejudo's accomplished might be more impressive than John Jones's record. If you think about the people he's beat. So yeah, and then he takes Dominic Cruz's style that way. Expected there to be a retirement, not from the super hot double champ. So, God. So we lost Henry Cejudo. We keep Dominic Cruz. But Dominic Cruz, his one thing that he's always heralded for, has done a complete 180, and that's his attitude after losing. Keith Peterson, I absolutely don't think was drunk. I think he's one of the best refs in the game. And to call Keith Peterson's, what's the word? Why am I blanking on this word? Whoopsie. Integrity. That's the word. Integrity. To call his integrity into question is a low down move. And he's sticking with it. Dominic isn't, he's not pulling back that statement. And he plans on fighting again. Jeez, just a weird attitude. Even in the interview, you talking to me, he's like, I told Peterson to let me go out. It's like, what? Like, what do you mean you told Peterson to let you go out? That's not how it works. He's the ref. And he decides when you're not intelligently defending yourself. That'd be like if Peterson went to you and he went, hey, you change your fight style for me. Don't dance around so much. It's hard to keep track of. Like, what? You don't get to dictate how the other dude does the thing? Come on, man. Poor sport from Dominic Cruz. And honestly, bro, retire. Like, your body's falling apart. You showed there that you're not championship level anymore. Like, what are you still here for? Guy's too stubborn, I think. I think Dominic Cruz, and he's burning bridges at his commentating gig the way he's treating this Keith Peterson scenario. Even John Anik's come out and been like, I'm with Keith Peterson, even though Cruz is my friend. So he's burning bridges at his next job, even though he's proved with that performance he's not going to be a championship level fighter. God, man, like what? I think the next couple years for Dominic Cruz, we might see are really rough. He might have a tough time letting go, and he might go on a real slide. Honestly, based on his actions here and performance. Francis Ngannou, once again, says, fuck yo, stupid questions, and just runs straight at Jairzinho Rozenstruik and knocks him out immediately. That was awesome. It was horrible form, but oh my god. And I guess we're just going to do this thing again where he just keeps knocking everyone out immediately until he gets back to the title shot. And I guess we'll see if that same strategy works again when he gets there. Exact opposite of Gaethje. Exact opposite of Gaethje's transformation. Francis Ngannou just goes, I just probably need to swing harder. That's probably the problem. I'm just not swinging enough and not hard enough. Jesus. Okay. Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens was an amazing fight. An amazing fight. And I think, I can't talk enough about this. Calvin Kattar, the boxing on this cat is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Untouchable boxing. Very, very, very touchable lead leg, though, because of the boxing. He's so heavy on that lead leg. So heavy on that lead leg that it's so kickable. Whether it's Jeremy Stephens took great advantage and honestly almost turned the tides of the fight because of it. Hanato Moicano. Shane Burgos had some success with the leg kick. Zabit Magomedsharipov had success with the leg kick. It's his weakness, and it's because he relies so much on the boxing style. What's awesome about his boxing style, though, is it's so pure. I don't think he threw a significant strike until like near the end of the first round, and it was this beautiful check hook that landed so flush. He's just in. He's feinting. He's jabbing. He's collecting information. His jab as a way to collect information on the opponent is one of the most pleasurable things to watch in the UFC right now. And I think what makes this performance such a standout fight from Kattar is that this is probably, in recent memory, the best I've seen Jeremy Stephens. Honestly. Like 100%. The way he was mixing up leg kicks all the time, body shots, combinations. He was not just looking for one or two strikes. He was throwing combos the whole night, cutting the cage really well to the body, to the head, back to the leg kicks. This is easily the best Jeremy Stephens I've seen, I think, period. Honestly, looking back, this is some of the best fighting I've seen from Jeremy, the most varied, thoughtful approach I've seen from Stephens probably ever. Probably ever. And Calvin Kattar still ate his lunch. That elbow that he landed was so perfectly timed, and it came from a round and a half of collecting information with that jab, collecting information with that check hook, the straight down the middle, and then that elbow was disgusting, dude. What a great performance from both guys. Like, I cannot overstate how impressed I was with Jeremy Stephens. So the fact that Calvin Kattar put a clinic on him like that, an absolute boxing clinic, when that was some of the best varied striking we've seen from Jeremy Stephens. What a fight. What a performance from Calvin Kattar. Oh my God. Next, the unanimous decision that made me the saddest of the night. Yorgan De Castro unfortunately lost to Greg Hardy. Yorgan had a great first round. I would say even a dominant first round, especially with the use of his leg kicks. But looks like he injured his foot on one of the leg kicks. Hardy checked it because the commentators told him to, because you can hear the commentators. The commentators like, you got to check those kicks. And then he did. I think Yorgan hurt or broke his foot, and he just wasn't able to take the pace to Hardy for the rest of that fight. Wasn't blown away. Hardy was not able to do much to a man with a broken foot other than barely eke out a unanimous decision. So all props to our boy Yorgan. Shit happens sometimes, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to him about it in the future. Pettis versus Cerrone. I honestly don't remember this one, you guys. I don't remember this one at all. But Pettis won, and I called that. I'm going to have to go back and watch that one again, because I really don't remember it. Alexei Oleinik versus Fabricio Verdum. I thought Verdum did enough to win this, but I also thought Verdum looked horrible. Like, probably some of the worst we've seen Verdum look in years. If this is what his comeback is going to look like, don't. Carlos Esparza versus Michelle Waterson was a horrible fight. Literally shadow boxing. It was embarrassing. Punching 4 feet away from each other. Luque versus Price was amazing. It was fantastic, and it was exactly what I called. No matter how good Price is, He just does not have the clean technical striking ability of Luque, and even though they really clashed heads early on, eventually just the clean, more precise, more accurate strikes won over. And it wasn't necessarily... well, he hurt him really bad. It probably could have gone to a finish, but I think it was a doctor stoppage, wasn't it, for the eye injury? Yep. Bryce Mitchell throwing out more twister attempts than have ever been attempted in the UFC. Ridiculous. Wish he could have got it, but an absolute grappling clinic. That was one of the most exciting fights on the night. And that man's getting his camo shorts. So beautiful. I'm always going to tune into Bryce Mitchell fights. He's awesome. Like, Bryce Mitchell's like one of my hottest boys. And then Ryan Spann versus Sam Alvey. I definitely thought that we'd get better out of Spann here. Definitely pumping the brakes on his hype after that. Definitely pumping the brakes, because he should have been able to take that a couple of times. He should have been able to take that. I'm just looking at the fight of the nights and the performance of the nights, because that was the last one. Cater didn't get a performance of the night. Come on, you guys. This was a night of fights where you got to give up more. And that, like, performance of the night, Ngannou. You're going to give it to Ngannou over Cater? Come on. Wow, okay, that legitimately upsets me. All right, and that was UFC 249. An incredibly entertaining and, in retrospective, sad night. I hope you're happy as a fan. I hope it was worth it, because I'm not sure it was for me. All right, well, Ferguson versus Khabib is no more, is ruined, and Henry Cejudo retired. So after that sadness, let's jump into this card. All right, first fight, Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. Anthony Smith looked really good at the beginning, in the first round. Really good in the first round. And then it just didn't work. I mean, I don't really know what to say about it. I think he gassed himself out, going a little bit too hard for the finish and trying to be a little bit too much of a volume striker. That's not necessarily his style, though personally, I would have loved to see him fight like that for a while, considering his range and his length, and it worked really well until he just completely gassed in the second round. Glover Teixeira was not only eating bombs really well, but his head movement was fantastic. I think it looked a lot worse than it was because he was slipping and rolling so well that a lot of shots looked like they were landing really clean with a lot of muster, but they really weren't, and that was evident in Glover's face after the fight. I mean, his face looked better in the fifth round than it did at the end of the first. It had healed. As far as the stoppage goes, I think there's been a lot of debate over whether or not the fight should have been able to keep going. Absolutely not. Smith was not in that fight at all. And then after that, I think a lot of the discussion comes down to whether or not the blame should be placed on the corner or on the referee, Jason Herzog. I remember I was listening to a clip from the Ariel Helwani show. Helwani was saying that it should be about 50-50, the blame. Couldn't disagree with that more, to be honest. The ref's job is to stop the fight when the fighter's no longer intelligently defending themselves. It has nothing to do with how much damage they've taken or whether or not they have an ability to win the fight. Every time Jason Herzog called for action, Anthony moved, he defended himself intelligently, and he did exactly what he needed to do to stay in the fight. So how can you stop that? Other than, and also every time it looked like Smith was about to get stopped because he was taking such a beating, Glover would stop and go for a submission, almost like Glover was trying to save him the beating. I think it ended up probably making him take a more sustained one in the end. God, this was such a weird fight, man. Yeah, but I know Herzog has come out and said that he should have done a better job and that he made a mistake, but there are let's see. Like, if you were going to go back and watch that fight, I'd say three or four moments from round 3 when Smith initially gets dropped, from round 3 to the end of round 5 when it finally gets stopped. Maybe 4 moments, I'd say, where it looked like he was in trouble. You probably could have stopped it, but then he sort of works his way out of it. He fights back. He intelligently defends himself. And as a referee, I can see how you don't stop it there. But now let's look at it from the cornerman's perspective, from Anthony Smith's corner's perspective. After that knockdown in the 3rd round, there wasn't a single second of that fight that he was winning. And this isn't from the referee's perspective, because referee is he intelligently defending himself? That's it. But as a cornerman, you're looking out for that guy's safety and whether or not he is even in the competition. If he's no longer even in the competition, you call it and you have him live to fight another day. When he comes back to the corner and he's telling you, hey, my teeth are falling out, he's doing everything. The fighter's not going to quit. And so when they're telling you these things, my hand, like my whatever's broken, my teeth are broken, I don't know if I can do it, he's telling you to stop it. But he's trying to do it and keep his pride. And so the fact that Mark Montoya has had some... and I've said really good things about Mark Montoya, because I think he's done really good things with Anthony Smith since his move up from 185. I think he's a very good coach. I think he gives good technical advice. I don't think he's a good cornerman. I don't think he gives good mid-fight advice, and I don't think he's a safe coach. I don't think he knows when to throw in the towel. Because this is the same guy who sent a friend of the show, Thomas Gifford, back out against Mike Davis over and over again when that fight was absolutely over. And it's also the same guy who sent Raquel Pennington back out against Amanda Nunes when Raquel came back and told him that she was done and she was getting mollywopped. This is a real fall from grace from Montoya, and he just came out and had more excuses after. He said those teeth that fell out of Anthony's were veneers. They weren't. Anthony's confirmed that they weren't, and he was handing them to the ref mid-fight. Fight should have been stopped, absolutely. Absolutely should have been stopped by the corner. If you're going to be mad at someone and going to be outraged, you do it with the corner. Could Herzog have stopped it? Yeah, probably. But the corner is who's supposed to care about him and who's supposed to be looking out for him. And the corner let him down. The corner knows his abilities. The corner knows when he's in a fight. And the corner let him down. Glover, on the other hand, looked absolutely fantastic. Glover looked so good, he had me questioning whether or not he was on PEDs. And I don't think he is, but that is a certain level of impressive. When you come out at that age and you're looking so good that people are sitting back and going, is he on steroids? So well done for Glover. Your boxing was so clean. I don't know if what he showed there was really championship caliber. I don't know if he'll get a title shot off of that. I think maybe what we more learned from this fight was that Anthony Smith is more of a flash in the pan at light heavyweight. Because for a top-level light heavyweight contender, you should be able to take out Glover Teixeira, for sure. All right, next down we had Ben Rothwell versus Ovince St. Preux. Rothwell won a split decision. I don't know if he should have. I think Ovince probably should have taken it, honestly, with that flurry at the end. Should have won the 3rd for sure, and probably the 2nd. St. Preux did not look very good at his heavyweight debut. Did not look very good at heavyweight debut. I think he probably needs to... I don't know what he needs to do, man. Every time Ovince St. Preux gets in there, he looks like he's not sure what he's supposed to be doing. So I don't really know what to say about this fight. If he stays there, he stays there. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But he was gassed way too early in this fight. That's something for sure. If he's going to carry that weight, he needs to have better conditioning. Drew Dober versus Alexander Hernandez. That fight was insane. What a freaking amazing fight. Drew Dober is showing how much he has progressed and how technically sound he is. And he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem. He was sort of putting it all together a while ago, and then he got submitted by Dariush. But now it's together, and now this man is on an absolute mission. An absolute mission. And nothing but knockouts since that loss to Dariush. And he was winning that Dariush fight, too. So, Dober is a force to be reckoned with in the future. And I think Alexander Hernandez was really overhyped. These guys have swapped pretty much. Alexander Hernandez came in, knocked out Beneil Dariush, and was really hyped up and has sort of been coming down a few notches. And Drew Dober came in, did really, really well against Dariush, got sort of a freakly submitted, and now he's sort of working his way back up the rankings. I think these guys, as far as how people know them and how established they are in the division, I think their role should be reversed, and it just did happen. Split decision win for Ricky Simón over Ray Borg. Whoever gave that a split is absolutely out of their mind. That was a very clear win for Ricky Simón. Just too big for Borg. Really, just too big for him. Completely out-wrestled him, manhandled him, slammed him to the canvas. It was a great fight, though. Arlovsky versus Felipe Lins kind of sucked. Arlovsky looked pretty good, though, for an old guy. Don't know what exactly. He's making a lot of money every time he shows up, I think. So I think that's the only reason. It's not like he's really working his way back up the division. Thiago Moises versus Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson looked really, really good for the first, and then got ankle locked. Thiago Moises, that was exciting. Goes for the leg roll, grabs the leg, and gets an absolute beautiful ankle lock. Michael Johnson goes for the Brazilian tap, though, to see if he can kind of sneakily get out of it. Lightly taps, and the ref doesn't see it, and it cost him his knee. Instead of making a thing and really tapping when you're in a dangerous submission, he tried to sort of lightly do one behind the ref's back on the fighter to get him to let go, and he didn't. And he got it looks like a serious knee injury for it. So that's what happens when you try and play those games. Sijara Eubanks clobbered Sarah Moraes. Eubanks is looking good physically and technically. Compared to what we've seen from her. Moraes just couldn't put it together and just looked super unathletic in there. Omar Morales versus Gabriel Benitez. That was a decent fight. Brian Kelleher absolutely starched Hunter Azur. That was fantastic. And the follow-up hammer fist after that check left hook was, disgusting. And I had my money on Hunter. Hunter looked really good for the first half. He was darting in and out. He was using his wrestling well. He was using his straight 1-2s that I've remembered from the Contender Series. But then Brian Kelleher just completely, through veteran savvy, turned the tides of the fight, started finding his openings, and little by little kept landing those counters until that left hook just landed so clean. Hit Hunter. He wasn't quite out. He looked up after he landed, and that hammer fist put him completely out. That was an Ngannou-style hammer fist for the ages. This was a really good card, actually. Only a couple boring ones, but these first couple fights were amazing. And then Chase Sherman with the Hellbows against Ike Villanueva. Wow. Villanueva, sorry. That was another great fight. What a return for Chase Sherman. He better get those 11 chicken wings. And so that was a great night of fights, honestly, especially for a Wednesday night. Great night of fights. And we're looking forward to the next ones. Looking forward to Overeem versus Harris. So thanks for joining us. And that was a really quick breakdown of the fight. Other than all that discussion from the Smith one, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, but really good fight night nonetheless. All right, final part of the podcast. We're going to break down tonight's Overeem versus Walt Harris card. Also in Jacksonville. All of them are Fight Night Jacksonville for the next little bit, because where else would allow holding sporting events in the middle of a global pandemic other than Jacksonville, Florida? Of course. Okay. Overeem versus Walt Harris. This one, this one's tough to call, because Walt Harris, this is a huge jump for him. Having his last biggest win be against Alexei Oleinik, and before that, Sergey Spivak. Wow. So this is either going to be a huge coming out party for Harris, or this is going to be Overeem showing us what he does best. I think if we learned anything from the Rosenstruik Overeem fight, it's that Overeem is in a place in his career right now where he can get out athleticism and overpowered. Even though Rosenstruck is a very technical kickboxer. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it from Harris, really. I'm not super confident in Overeem or his chin. Or his latest streak of fights. I don't know about his durability or... But I don't know about Harris either. I've seen almost nothing from Harris other than an incredible amount of athleticism. I don't know, guys. I have no idea who to pick. This is gonna be a really fun fight though, and we're gonna learn a lot from it, I believe, unless it ends immediately. But that's all I got. Fireworks, big, heavy striking fireworks. But I got no predictions for this. I mean, if it's just a striking match, I expect Overeem to be so much more technically capable. But I expect Harris to be so much more athletically capable. And that's really all I have for analysis on this one. Big boys doing what big boys do. The next, I'm actually really excited for this. Claudia Gadelha versus Angela Hill. Gadelha sort of had to revamp her style and her camp and her approach to training and cutting weight and maintaining her weight. But Angela Hill is just the most active fighter. Like the female cowboy, I've been such a fan of hers for a while. She always puts on fantastic fights. Her fight against Andrade, one of my favorites ever. I really hope she puts it together here, man. This would be great to watch. It just seems that Angela Hill really crumbles whenever the grappling is implemented in any serious way, and that's Gadelha's bread and butter. So really, the thing is, this is going to be the second. This is pretty much going to be like the Ioane and Jacek fight that Gadelha had and hasn't really improved since. Is Angela Hill really needs to stay away from the takedowns. When she does get taken down, the clock is on, and either Gadelha is going to finish her on the ground, or Gadelha is going to completely gas, trying to keep her on the ground. And once she completely gasses, I think Angela Hill's going to pick her apart on the feet. Honestly, I think this is a very much a grappler versus striking. I don't think Gadelha is going to have anything for Angela Hill on the feet. I don't think she's going to have anything for her on the feet. And I don't think Angela Hill's going to really have much for Gadelha on the ground. I think the best you're going to see is her wall walking up the side of the cage after being taken down. But I'm rooting for Angela Hill. I hope we go Angela Hill by TKO here or by decision. I think her output is just going to be so much higher. Her stamina is so much higher. If she can keep it on the feet for a good amount of the fight, I absolutely see her winning. And I think it's going to be tough for Gadelha to nab a win here in the new rule system. I don't think she's going to go for control. I think she'll go for control, and I don't think that'll be enough to win. I don't know if I've really seen the stamina from her to be able to hold a really athletic opponent down and hit them with ground and pound and win rounds under the new rules while on the ground. I don't think she really has a style that's gonna convincingly win rounds while also preserving her gas tank. But it's only a 3-round fight. You just got to win those first 2 and then not get finished. And Gadelha definitely has a gas tank for the first round and a half. So, oh god, a lot of tough fights to call here, hey? Okay, Dan Ige versus Edson Barboza. Another really tough one to call because I am hot on Dan Ige. He has probably the most well-integrated game in the featherweight division right now. As far as young up-and-coming prospects go, I think he's probably the most promising. He's got power in both hands. He's scrappy. He's good in a scramble. He's got clean striking. He can find his shots. He throws combinations. He counters well. And he wrestles. You know? He does everything very well. And it's pretty much what we're going to see is Edson Barboza as a known quantity. Can Dan Ige keep up the pressure? There's a very defined way to fight Edson Barboza. Everyone has the game plan on Barboza now. So it's, can Dan Ige implement it? Can he keep the pressure without getting kicked? Can he keep Barboza moving backwards in a straight line? And can he land his shots from there? It really is about keeping the pressure on, keeping Barboza moving back, making sure he can't land those kicks, and don't kickbox with him at range, and get him moving back on a straight line, and that's where you can land your shots. For Khabib, it was his actual shots, his takedowns. You know, for Gaethje, it was hitting him with that right hand on the way out. He loops out the same way every time. You know, Kevin Lee was hitting him with leg kicks. So whatever you can get from Barboza as he's trailing off, circling straight back from the pressure that you give, That's how you're going to win that fight. So this, to me, is less... Because I think, does Dan Ige have all the physical abilities and technical abilities to do this? Yes. This is the game planning test for Dan Ige. Can he take an opponent who's incredibly skilled and incredibly dangerous, but is still a known quantity, and cater a game plan and a fight style around that for this specific encounter? Very exciting. Very exciting matchup. And I'm excited to see how Barboza does at featherweight. He's been looking awful. It looks like he cut way too much weight. As soon as I heard he was going to try and do this, I was really against it. I was really against it, and I don't think he looks good at this weight. I think we're going to see a diminished Edson Barboza with possibly a diminished chin. I think this might end in a knockout, honestly, for Dan Ige. All right, next we've got Krzysztof Jotko versus Eric Anders. Jeez, okay, this... Jotko a lot of the time is kind of boring. He likes to stall the fight out. He likes to play the positional game. Eric Anders has been all over the place. He's either looking very hot or he's getting absolutely dominated. And lately he looked pretty good against Vinicius Moreira, Vinicius Moreira doesn't really look good against anybody. And he won that split decision against Gerald Meerschaert. So that split decision against Gerald Meerschaert gives me a lot of hopes that he's starting to put a lot of this stuff back together, especially after a loss to... the Spartan. Oh, why can't I remember his name with the long hair, the Canadian? Elias Theodoro. There it is. All right, next we got one of my most anticipated fights on the card, which is Song Yadong versus Marlon Vera. Chito's my boy. I'm going to have to go with him. Personally, the heart goes with Chito. The head might be going with Yadong, though, because, boy, these guys are some of the best strikers in the division. This meeting at bantamweight is determining the future of the division. Who's going to go to the top? I really hope it's Vera. He's been grinding so long against lower level opponents. He deserves this step up in competition, and I think he deserves the propelling that he would take into the rankings from this more than Yadong does. Yadong's moved up so quickly. Vera has paid his dues every step of the way, and every time he gets a fight against a bigger name opponent, something horrible happens. He really is the Ecuadorian Tony Ferguson. Or no, not Ecuadorian. Where's he from? Venezuela? Why can't I remember this? Why can't I remember where he's from? Ecuador. Yeah, I was right. Ecuador. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm going to call that right now. That's going to be fight of the night. That'll be fight of the night. And I'm going to take Marlon Vera just because I think he doesn't have as clean and as powerful striking as Yadong, but he's got a craftier game, and he's striking and grappling, and I think he is a better grappler. So I think he's got more to rely on. Hopefully he takes this fight smart. Man, this is going to be a great fight. That's a great fight. That's fight of the night right there. Yadong versus Vera. Matt Brown is going to be fighting. Cool. He should be retired. Kevin Holland is going to be fighting Anthony Hernandez. Cool. I like Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's always fun. He's going to be the crazy rubber man, and he's going to talk some smack, so that'll be fun. Giga Chikadze is always a great time to watch. He was going to be fighting Mike Davis, who's coming off a great win over Thomas Gifford, but instead they're pulling in Erwin Rivera because he couldn't make it. Song Yadong almost couldn't make it due to visa issues, and Uriah Faber was going to step in for him. Luckily, that didn't happen because that would have been another setback for Vera that he doesn't need. Giga Chikadze is always great to watch. Striking masterclass. I love seeing that pure kickboxing style being adapted into MMA. Darren Elkins is fighting a guy. Courtney Casey is fighting Mero Romero Borello. That will be a good fight, actually. That'll be a really good flyweight fight. That should be higher up on the card. That's really underrated. That's going to be a really good women's fight, I think. And then we have Dontel Mays versus Rodrigo Nascimento, and I don't know either of those guys. Dontel Mays just came off the Contender Series, didn't he? Yep. Okay. And that's the card. So, a couple things here and there. Not a lot of like great storylines heading in, but a lot of really good matchups that I have no idea how they're gonna equate to each other, how they're gonna interact. This is a great aspect to a fight card. Is sometimes they're exciting because you have a pretty good idea of what's going to be delivered, and I think this one's going to be really fun because a lot of these fights I have absolutely no idea how these styles are going to interact. Like Barboza and Ige, that's a weird matchup, but in a cool way. Hill versus Gedalia, that's a weird matchup, but in a really cool way. Anders versus Jotko is a really weird matchup. In a cool way, it could end up being very boring, though. I will say that about that matchup. Yeah, a lot of just kind of cool stuff. This will be a fun card. All right. And that's the show for the week. Thank you for listening. Sorry it's late. It'll be more regular in the future when the water isn't off all the time.